Welcome back. My guests are Mike Crockett, he's the E911 manager, and also Melissa Page, who's the training coordinator for E911. Thank you for joining me today because I want to tell our viewers about the E911 texting. And first start out by explaining what that is and how does it get sent?
Sure. Several years ago, the FCC realized that people with mobile devices needed the ability to text 911.
Okay.
And they've been working on that. And as of last year, they told all the wireless carriers that they wanted them to be able to deliver text to 911 messaging by the end of this year. So we started working on that in September with our vendor to get the equipment in place.
Okay.
And we went live approximately a month ago with 3 of the 4 major vendors, which are, we have AT&T, Verizon, and Sprint currently able to send text and 911 messages to us, and we're working with T-Mobile, which we hope to have done in a few weeks, and that will be 4 of the major carriers that we're active with. And so people that are in the jurisdiction of Roanoke City can text 911. The important message we want to give to those people is this, that it's not a replacement for dialing 911. Texting to 911, and Melissa will talk a little bit more about the limitations of it. It does have some limitations, and they need to be aware of that. And voice dialing is much faster, much more accurate for us, and we pick up the nuances of the voice in the background. You miss all that with the text to 911 message.
Well, that kind of leads me to my next question: is who should be using the text? The 911 text?
Primarily, we're marketing to the deaf and hard of hearing community. So now they have mobile devices. They'll have equal access to 911 without going through a relay, without using special equipment.
Okay.
And then also in those circumstances that a person may find themselves in that would jeopardize their safety from making a voice call. You know, the traditional thing people talk about is an abduction or breaking and entering where they're hiding and they're afraid of their voice would alert the suspects, and this way they could text that information to 911.
And is it pretty simple? I mean, do you just, how would you do it on your phone?
Well, it's just as simple as punching in the numbers. It's 911 on your texting page, and it will come, as Mike said, if you're in the jurisdiction of Roanoke City, you will come into our center, and it comes in on a dedicated line. The dispatchers know they're getting ready to pick up on a text call, and so they can pick up, and that conversation can start and be initiated.
So they could further text you what's actually going on?
Yes, it opens up a chat session just like it would with any other 2 phones that we're talking. One of the problems with that, though, is we can't initiate a text session. So if something were to happen and that session was closed down for some reason, including if we were needing to hang up or hung up on accident, the customer would get a bounce back message saying this conversation has been terminated by Roanoke City 911. You'll need to call 911 or reinitiate a text conversation.
Or if the signal dropped out, I mean, that might be another limitation.
It is definitely a limitation. It's just like any other text. Sometimes if you've ever texted your friends and family and they swear they never got it, you know, there are times when it will not go through. It is not a guaranteed delivery when you're using text to 911, and that's an important message for citizens to know that we may get one or a few of them, we may not get all of them, and that could be some really pertinent information.
Right.
You know, especially location, because that's always first and foremost what we're going to have to verify.
So it's an option, but it's if you can do the phone, just call in the 911. It's more efficient, more effective.
The most efficient way and guaranteed delivery of information is going to always be to call 911.
Okay, and so you mentioned the carriers here in Roanoke that are doing this. Are other localities also doing the text 911?
They are. All localities should be addressing this. We are the first locality in this area to do it, and also to be able to basically handle anybody with, you know, major carrier services. So it's not dedicated to a specific carrier. There are some agencies that can, for example, Verizon has a solution for this, and so they can go with the Verizon solution. I know they're doing that in Martinsville and Henry County. But all the localities, including I'm sure Roanoke County, are working on this, and hopefully we'll soon have it available for the whole region.
Can you give me an example of like a circumstance where it's been used? I know you've probably been up for a little while now, where somebody's called in and it worked, or just kind of how?
Yeah, I mean, sure. We're probably averaging 1 to 2 calls a week. Some of those being unfortunately false, fake calls, which we discourage people from making. Obviously, there's reasons they shouldn't do that. We have had several calls that were legitimate. One that comes to my mind, you know, recently was a taxi driver was in his vehicle, and he had what he thought were a couple people in the back conducting a drug deal.
Wow.
And he texted us about that, and of course we responded to police, and they did stop that vehicle and check it out.
So it worked, yeah.
Yeah, it works. Yeah.
And so how are we making the public aware that we have this now? I mean, we're going out into the community. We'll talk about that a little.
Yes, I chaired this department's community education team. So we have about 14 employees who volunteer their time to go and speak to neighborhood groups, church groups, senior groups.
Yeah.
We go out to the schools. And recently we have reached out to all of the neighborhood alliances and neighborhood watches in the area. We've conducted a couple of those so far just in the past month, and we have several more coming up.
Good.
So we do try to get the word out that way. Of course, we use, you and your services and RVTV to get our messages out. And we have done some preliminary news media coverage, but it was just prior to us going live. So it's time to let, for the public to know that in the city of Roanoke, we do have that capability. It is also important for them to know, though, that if it's a situation where they actually need to speak to someone in Roanoke County, Benton, Salem, we do not have the capacity to transfer a text message over to another jurisdiction.
That is important.
So it is only in those, city of Roanoke boundaries that this will work for them.
If somebody had questions and wanted to know more about this, how could they find out?
Well, a couple ways. They can call me. 540-853-2945 is my direct number. They could visit the city's webpage, www.roanokeva.gov/E911, and there's a way to contact us through that as well.
Okay. Well, thank you both, Mike, Melissa. It's been really educational, and hopefully people are listening and will know what's the best way to handle this new service that y'all are providing. Thanks.
Okay. Thank you.
We'll be right back.